There we go. Tonight, we will be participating in different ways. One is by using reactions. Let's test that let's test that out now. Please locate your reaction button and use one. You can use smiley face, heart, or whatever reaction you would like to use to test it out. All right, I see thumbs up. Now, you are free to do this during tonight's session as long as it is appropriate to what is being discussed. You will have the opportunity to have the mic in tonight's session as well. Please raise your hand to participate, and once called upon, unmute yourself. The final way you'll be able to participate tonight is through the chat feature. Let's locate the chat feature and test it out by answering a question for me. What are you hoping to learn about tonight? Please answer in the chat. Okay, Rick, we'll be back in a moment. Let's see, let me see that one. So I need to make sure you guys can utilize the chat feature. So what are you hoping to learn about tonight? Huh? Good. You hope to learn about what she does. All right, great. Okay, I see you all using the chat. Hope to learn more about the Michigan Women's Commission and Women in Government. Well, you all are in the right place. I will tell you that. Okay, awesome. Finally, if you're having any technical issues or have a personal question or anything like that, please direct message Kelly in the chat. Okay. All right. Here to introduce our guest speaker for the evening is Commissioner Tamara Faber with the Michigan Women's Commission. She will speak briefly about her current role and involvement with the MWC before introducing our guest speaker. Without further ado, please give a warm Girl Scout welcome to Commissioner Faber.
Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. My name is Tamara Faber. I am super excited to be able to kick this off today on behalf of the Michigan Women's Commission. The Commission is a group of women who are working to make Michigan a better state for all women, including all of you girls out there. We do this by, for example, providing more access to daycare so that women who want to work have an easier time getting jobs. Or we try to connect more women with high-paying jobs right here in Michigan. Those are the types of cool things we are doing. So on behalf of the Michigan Women's Commission, I am so grateful that you are here tonight, and I am excited to introduce our guest, Maria Martinez. As you can see on the screen, Maria is a proud graduate of the University of Michigan. She was an attorney for several companies before joining the government, and she's currently the chief of staff for Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I do believe tonight you're going to learn more about what that means, which is super exciting. And without further ado, we will turn it over to Martina. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you all today. I was a Brownie and a Girl Scout until middle school, and I can say I can still recite the Girl Scout promise. It's always going to be in my brain, and I love it because it's a great reminder of how to go out and be in the world. So thank you. So right now I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff to Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So I'm sure you've all learned about what the governor does in the 3 different branches of government. So the governor is the top executive in the executive branch. So she signs bills into law, she helps make those laws a reality, and she generally oversees state government. So in my role, I get to serve as a member of her senior leadership team. So I provide advice to the governor and to the chief of staff. I help develop her policies and her message, so what she says to her constituents. when she gives speeches or when she sends out letters. I help prioritize her time. She gets a lot of invitations to attend events and to speak out on certain issues. So I help prioritize what she actually participates in. And I think in the introduction slide, there was something about managing the governor's teams. So we want to make sure that everyone in the office is working together on the same goals and implementing the governor's priorities. So specifically, what I do is I have 4 different divisions. So there's the appointments division, which helps the governor find really great people to help serve in state government with her on boards and commissions. So we have the Women's Commission here today. That's an example of a board or of a commission that the governor appoints people to. So she selects all of the people who serve on the Women's Commission. So I help with that work. Another one of my teams is the Community Engagement Division, and that team might work with local governments or local businesses to support the governor's policy agenda. I also oversee the Constituent Services Division. So I don't know if any of you have ever written a letter to the governor or to a state representative. The Constituent Service Division helps respond to people who reach out to the government for help. Maybe you just want to convey your opinion on something, but that's the team that interacts with constituents and the residents of Michigan. There's a bit of managing the unexpected as well. So maybe there's a major storm that hits a community in the state. And so I might help with how the state responds to the storm and make sure that the communities and the residents in the community get the support they need. And the residents understand that the governor and the state are here to help them. Another thing that I do in my job, I get to serve as a substitute for the governor at times. So I mentioned that the governor is very busy and she doesn't get to attend every event that she gets invited to. So when the governor can't attend something, maybe I get to attend something. So I'll go to a lunch or I'll go out to a ribbon cutting event in the community, and that can be really fun too. I can talk about some of the aspects of my role that I really enjoy. So I love that no day is the same. Every morning I look at my calendar and I make my to-do list. And by the end of the day, it's crossed out, scribbled over, highlighted, sticky notes everywhere. You just never know what's going to pop up. So to be successful in this role, you have to be uncomfortable with a lot of change. And ready to shift priorities at any moment. I really like that. But the role also has challenges. So one of the biggest challenges is also something I really enjoy, which is the very big workload and very big amount of responsibilities. There's so many days where I wish that there were 30 hours in the day instead of 24 hours, because there's just so much work to be done. But I do consciously try to manage my time, which is really helpful. So I don't know about you all, but I use a physical notebook, a pen and paper to write down my to-do list. And I find that when I write something down, it really helps me remember it. So that's helpful. And then there's also something really satisfying. Oh, look, I see your notebook there, doing the same thing. Love it. I also really like to cross something off when I'm done with it. There's something very satisfying about crossing something off the list. So that helps me manage my time. Another strategy that I use is being really clear about my goals. When you're really clear on your goals and you brainstorm and you write them out so they don't just live in your head, it helps you think through what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. And then lastly, I'll say saying no is a very important skill. With limited time in the day, you can't say yes to every person who asks to talk to you or for you to do something for them. And it can be uncomfortable to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not available for that, or I can't take on this additional work because I have other things going on. But there are ways to say no so the person feels heard and seen and respected, even though you're not able to help them with everything. So encourage you all to practice that. You know, it's a very important skill as you go on through your personal life and your work life. So maybe next I can talk about my path to get to where I am today. So when I was a kid, I always wanted to help people. That was my motivating force. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. You know, there was a time when I really wanted to be a teacher. There was a time when I really wanted to be a motivational speaker. But I wasn't really sure. And so I went off to college at the University of Michigan, took classes on every subject that interests me. And it was really an incredible opportunity to just explore and learn about the world and learn about myself. And I started to really care about environmental issues and climate change. But I also really loved reading and writing, and I was good at that. So I was deciding between being an English professor who teaches at the college level or going to law school and being an environmental attorney. And so ultimately I chose to go to law school, and I went to the University of Michigan again and took every class I could possibly take on that topic, on environmental law. And I really learned a lot. But then about halfway through law school, I felt like I needed to switch paths for personal reasons. And so when I graduated from law school, I worked for various companies, as mentioned at the beginning, doing business litigation. So my job was to go to court and represent business clients in law schools. I don't know if you've ever seen a TV show where they go into court. That's what I did. And that was really fun too. And then about halfway, or probably 6 years later, I got a message on LinkedIn, which is the social media site that we use in our professional lives, from the governor's chief legal counsel, who's her top lawyer, asking if I wanted to apply for a position on his team. And I didn't know this person, and I had no connections to the governor's office. So it felt like my dream job, working for the governor, appeared in my inbox, which was really cool. And I had to read the message at least 50 times to make sure it was real. But it was, and I applied for the job and I got it. So now I get to spend every day working to serve the people of Michigan and working to help people. And so my advice is just to think about what motivates you and say yes to opportunities, but never forget that motivating factor, and never give up on your dream, because there will be opportunities for you and you just have to be open to them.
Thank you so much. Do you have a little time for questions?
Great.
All right. So, girls, any questions that you have for Miss Martinez? You can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand. And when we call on you, unmute yourself. If you put them in the chat, we'll ask them for you. If you're feeling like you want to take the mic, then we will go ahead and unmute you if you raise your hand. Well, I have a question, Miss Martinez. What is it that you would say you like the best about your job?
The governor asks her team every day to go make life easier for Michiganders. And so I love that my charge is to help people. And, you know, politics is the reality of how elected officials come into their jobs. But every person I interact with on either side of the aisle is motivated by helping people. And that is a really refreshing thing. I think it's okay to assume good intentions, and that people want to work together. So I really like that. And I just really like how challenging it is and putting my brain to use, because it's not an easy job.
Awesome. Thank you. Rain from Troop 77091, you have a question? You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Do you actually go to the courtroom and my question is, do you actually go to the courtroom and is with the judge and does the jury and yeah.
Yes, so right now, in my current role, I no longer practice law, so I don't go to the courtroom. But when I was practicing law, yes, my job was to go into court and advocate to the judge, or if there were a jury because it was a trial, my client's position. Now, one thing that I don't think you see when you watch legal shows or movies where there are lawyers, a lot of legal work is the preparation for going to court. So you do a lot of writing. So we call them briefs, but it's like writing a paper and giving it to the judge and saying, this is why my client should win. So you turn in your paper and then the judge says, we're going to set a hearing on this topic, and then brings all the parties, the two sides together in the courtroom and says, tell me in a few words what your paper says and why I should agree with your position. It's a good question.
Thank you. And we have another question. So Reagan, if you could, and this is Reagan with Troop 77084, could you clarify that a little bit? And what would you recommend if you wanted to do this job? What would you recommend you take up in school, or is that what you're asking? You can unmute yourself, Reagan.
Like, if I wanted to do your job, which I kind of do, what would you want to, like, what would you recommend? Do you have like any tips?
I do. So going to school is very helpful. You have to have some basic knowledge about how the government works. So talked a little bit about the three branches of government. So the branch that I'm in is the executive branch. So having a basic knowledge about how government works is very, very important. A law degree is helpful because then you understand how laws really become, how a bill goes from a law, and then what happens once it's a law. That can be really helpful too, but that's not required. I would say having good people skills is very important. Understanding how to communicate and meet people where they are. A lot of the work is advocating for a certain position. The governor has said she wants to lower costs for Michiganders. So my job is advocating for that position, but you can't just say, this is my position and I'm right. You have to know how to talk to people and bring them into your position so they really can understand what you're trying to do. Is that helpful?
Thank you. And Ms. Martinez, the Girl Scouts that participate in Friday Night Live, they're at an advantage because they've been learning about all the different branches and they've been learning these pieces. So the information that you're saying that they need to know, they're like, okay, it should be coming together. Like, oh yeah, we're learning even more about government. So Layla with Troop 77091 wants to know, what's the most challenging part of your job you would feel?
Yeah, so one really challenging part of the job is that the decisions that the governor's office makes actually impact real people. And so it's very easy, I think, in some jobs to, you type on your computer and you make some calls and you sign off at the end of the day. In this job, you're always thinking about what is the impact on the real people that I spoke with today. We had to make a really hard decision about whether to fund something or to show up in a certain place, and those decisions have impacts. But that's also a really exciting part of the job, is that your work really matters. you can really have an impact. Thank you for the question.
Kara C wants to know what's the most difficult time you've been in your position, or since you've been in your position. What was the most difficult time since you've been in your position?
Yeah, so you all remember the pandemic. I'm sure you remember virtual learning. That was a really challenging time to be in the governor's office because everyone in government, whether it was federal government or the state government, no one knew what COVID was. And so there was a lot of learning. What is COVID? What are the risks? How should we respond to protect people? And there had to be a lot of decision making quickly and without full information, which can be hard. I don't know about you all, but I like to have all the information I can before I make a decision about something. But with COVID, because it was a public health emergency, we had to act really fast, even though we didn't have all the facts. So that was a really, really challenging time. But I think we learned a lot from it, and we're now so much better prepared for the next kind of public health emergency. Thank you for the question.
I do have a question, Miss Martinez. So you mentioned that you were a Girl Scout. What are some skills that you learned as a Girl Scout that you think are applicable to your position today?
I think leadership skills and taking initiative. I loved being a Girl Scout because I loved sort of picking the different badges and sort of what we were going to focus on as a team and then going and doing it. It was a lot of doing. And I think that's so important to have the confidence that, yes, you can go out and make a difference. And every action you take is an example of that and will give you the confidence to go on to college if that's something you wanted to do, to go and pursue a job that really interests you. That all takes confidence, and you guys are building that every day in what you do.
Thank you very much. So I just want to thank you so much for taking out your time today to share with the girls, and they're going to go on for the rest of the evening and to learn even more about the Office of the Governor and what she does and what state governors do in general. So they're going to get a lot more information too.
That is so great. Thank you so much for having me today. If you ever come to Lansing, I would love to meet you all in person and maybe give you a little tour of our building at the governor's office.
Oh, awesome. Thank you very much for extending that.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to drop off now. Have a great night.
Okay, have a great evening. All right, so now we are going to learn more about the state governor's office, and you'll see how a lot of what Miss Martinez talked about is applicable. So let me go ahead and get back started with tonight's, let's see. Okay, and I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Kelly.
Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you and hope you enjoyed hearing from Miss Martinez. I sure did and learned a whole lot. So we're going to keep things rolling with an icebreaker. So it's icebreaker time. Let's go.
All right, give me one moment.
So before we get started, we're just going to go through some directions of our icebreaker activity. So what we're going to see is in just a second, we'll see the direction slide pop up here on the screen. But what we're going to do is on the slide, you're going to see what is a hidden picture of a women leader. So one at a time, I'm going to go ahead and reveal a box in the picture. What you're going to do is as soon as you think you know the women leader that is hidden underneath that box, you are going to enter your response in the chat. So we're going to do a series of 5 women leaders. There's going to be one per slide. And we'll see at the end of each slide, I'll reveal which women leader is hidden underneath each box. So here we have the directions. I'll just quickly read through them again to make sure everybody's got it, and then we'll jump right in. So it's called Guess the Women Leader Picture Game. Directions. A picture of a woman leader will be hidden underneath a box. So it's going to be a mystery at first. I will start to reveal a little bit of the picture at a time. When you think you know which women leader is hidden underneath the box, enter your response in the chat. At the end of each slide, I will reveal who the women leader is. So let's begin with women leader number 1. We'll wait for it to pop up here on the screen. We can still see the directions slide.
Oh, it's not. There we go. Is that? It's going to number 2. Give me one moment. It should be on number 1 now. Is it not going to number 1?
No, I can still see just the direction slide. There we go. Okay, we can see it. So women leaders hidden picture number 1. So you can see it's all covered up. And we're going to start to see a little bit of the picture at a time here. Move this out of the way here. All right. Here we go. Thank you for your patience. Okay, we should see that first part of the picture has start to appear. So when you think you know who might this women leader be, go ahead and enter your response in the chat. Anybody have any guesses yet? I see a couple. We're going to keep revealing the picture. As I reveal more and more, if you change your response, you can go ahead and enter that new response in the chat. I see some Governor Gretchen Whitmer to start. Let's see who it might be. Anybody change their guess at all now?
See some changes.
As we see more of the picture. A little hint, this is a little review from just a little bit ago. All right, I'm going to reveal it. So our women leader hidden underneath this picture is who our guest speaker was just featured on our call, Miss Maria Martinez, the Deputy Chief of Staff for the Office of Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So I see Maria Martinez in the chat. Way to go. You got the first one correct. Okay, let's move on to picture number 2. Women leaders hidden picture number 2. Same thing. We got it. I'll reveal a little bit of the picture at a time. When you think you know who it is, enter your response in the chat. Anybody have any guesses yet? Here we go, revealing more of the picture. Let's see. Oh, I see we're getting some answers in. Let's finish off this picture here. If you guessed Governor Gretchen Whitmer, you are correct. Which Miss Dana mentioned, we will be learning a little bit more about her role tonight in the government and her role as our state leader. So women leader hidden picture number 2 is Governor Gretchen Whitmer, our state leader. Moving on to picture number 3. Here's a little fun fact about this one. This is a women leader that is a part of our council, Southeast Michigan Girl Scouts of Southeastern Michigan. Does anybody know which leader in Girl Scouts this happens to be? Oh, I see some coming through. I'll give you a second here to get those responses in. Oh, I not only see her name, I also see her position.
I see some names coming up in the chat.
Wonderful. So if you guess Monica Woodson, who is the CEO of the Girl Scouts of Southeastern Michigan, you are correct. She is a women leader that we have right here, a part of Girl Scouts. Nice work. Let's go on to picture number 4, hidden picture number 4. When you think you know, go ahead and enter your responses in the chat.
I see some answers coming in.
Answers coming in. Oh, I see them popping up too. I'll give everybody here a second to finish inputting their answers. Let's see, I see more coming in. If you entered Oprah Winfrey in the chat, you are correct. That is our women leader hidden underneath this box. And certainly, lastly, picture number 5. And this is also another women leader that we featured in our virtual speaker series tonight. Can anybody remember what her name was? And I'll give everybody a second to input their answers. She was our wonderful speaker that introduced Miss Maria Martinez tonight. Does anybody remember what her name was? And another little hint, she is a part of the Michigan Women's Commission. She is one of our commissioners that Governor Gretchen Whitmer has appointed to the commission.
We have some answers coming in the chat.
Wonderful. Good memories. Way to go. Give everybody another second here. Yes, this was Commissioner Tamara Faber, who is one of our Michigan Women's Commissioners that was appointed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So nice job, everyone, with our icebreaker tonight. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Miss Dana, and she's going to start telling us more and more about the governor.
All right, thank you, Kelly. So tonight's topic, is the state governor. And so our governor in the state of Michigan is Gretchen Whitmer. So to tell you a little bit more about her, she was also a lawyer and politician, and she's serving as our 49th governor of Michigan, and she's been in that position since 2019. She's a member of the Democratic Party, and she served in the Michigan House of Representatives and in the Michigan Senate. She was born and raised in Michigan, and she went to Michigan schools and also Michigan State University, and that's where she got her law degree as well. And just a little fun fact, she signed over 1,250 bipartisan bills and has had 5 balanced budgets. And we'll learn a little bit more about that later. Now we're going to learn about the office of the governor, state governor as a whole. So this applies to all state governors. So the state is like a mini country in many ways. It has its own constitution. It has the branches of government, executive, legislative, and judicial. They create laws, and it has kind of what would be like its own president, which is the governor. And she or he leads the state executive branch. But we'll say she for tonight because that's our governor. Now, a state's executive branch carries out laws passed by the state legislature. That's why both national and state executive branches are mostly made up of departments and agencies that do the day-to-day work of putting laws into action. So a state constitution describes the powers of a state's three branches. So that's kind of what informs what they're able to do. And a governor's power comes from the state constitution and state laws. So just in case you're wondering, how do we determine what the governor's even able to do? Her powers, so to speak, they come from the constitution of that state. And so today we'll talk actually a lot about executive orders. Now, an executive order is a set of instructions it acts like a law, but it's issued by the governor alone without the legislature. An executive order is one of the most important tools a governor has, but it's very limited. So a governor can only issue executive orders about certain things, and we're going to learn what those certain things are. A little bit more about executive orders. So the Michigan Constitution of 1963, I know you guys are probably saying that is a very long time ago, but the Constitution is actually not that long ago. The Constitution of 1963 vests the executive power of the state in the governor. What that means is basically that is what establishes or names her power. And that can be exercised formally by executive order. And there are a variety of executive orders that the governor can issue, and we'll talk more about those. Once signed by the governor, an executive order is filed with the Secretary of State. And many of you got an opportunity to hear from our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. So executive orders are filed with her office, and those orders are sealed and retained by the Office of the Great Seal. In Michigan in particular, we also have something that's called executive directives. So you'll find that some things can be different between states, even though the state governor office runs or is the executive branches of the state, and they run pretty much very similar. There can be subtle differences. So there's executive directives in Michigan, and they're similar to executive orders, and they're issued by the governor, and they establish a basic internal policy or procedures for the executive branch of the state government. One of the differences in executive directives versus executive orders, executive directives are not filed with the Secretary of State. So those do not reside under Secretary Benson. Some differences between executive orders versus laws. So executive orders are limited to certain topics and situations, whereas laws can cover any topic. Executive orders do not need the state legislature. So we went over that the governor can just sign the executive order and that'll put it into play, whereas laws must be passed by the state legislature. Now, both laws and executive orders are valid once they're signed by the governor. And the last piece is executive orders create limited instructions for a special situation, and laws apply to everyone. So let's go more into examples of executive orders. So here are the 6 examples of primarily executive orders that you'll see. So one is to proclaim a state of emergency. And Ms. Martinez talked a little bit about that with COVID. Another way is to make rules for state government, that executive branch. 3, the executive order can be signed to form a task force. 4, create a new executive office. 5, call the legislature into a special session. And 6, reduce a prisoner's sentence. So these are the 6 examples of executive orders. Proclaim a state of emergency. So that when during a natural disaster, disease outbreak, or other emergency, this releases all possible resources to help. The governor can even call out the state's National Guard. And some of you, if you watch the news at all, or you hear your parents talking about different things, you've probably seen a lot of instances where the governor has had to proclaim a state of emergency. Another executive order is make rules for state government. So most state government is part of the executive branch, which the governor controls. State government rules apply to state government employees or the state government itself. So Gretchen Whitmer, our governor, can make rules that say apply to Maria Martinez because she is a state government employee. Form a task force. So form a task force to study a problem or recommend solutions. So when new problems come up, the governor's just not going to rely on her own expertise. She'll get experts in the area, professionals, and form a task force so that they can take all of their brains and try to help solve that problem. So as a governor, you're not solving problems or signing executive orders and doing those things on your own, so to speak. You're getting help, you're getting assistance. Create a new executive office. So create a new executive office or council to carry out a necessary task. And we'll go over examples of that as well. Call the legislature into a special session. If the legislature is on a break and a law needs to be passed, the governor can force lawmakers back into session to take care of business. And the last example of an executive order is to reduce a prisoner's sentence. So she can do that or pardon a convicted person completely. And convicted means, that the judge or jury said that you are guilty of some law. You were then convicted of it, and then you would be sentenced. So I know this is a lot of words, but just to sum this up, these are examples of executive directors that the governor has signed. So building up Michigan's workforce or infrastructure, that was just an example where the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, they had to build a plan it was like a workforce plan for people to get more jobs and get certain skill sets.
Look, if
Oh, I'm sorry. Does someone have a question? Okay.
I'll send her a message to see if she has a question.
Okay. So the next example of an executive director had to do with Michigan Developmental Disabilities Council. So this was a council that was already in place, but the governor had to write an executive directive to add more people to the council. So at this time, you'll see the council had a group of 21 across the state, 21 people, and then she changed it to 25. She wanted to include, it says, additional voices and advance the council's important purpose, which in their purpose, just to let you know, is to undertake, is for advocacy, capacity building, and systemic change activities that contribute to, well, just to sum it up, to assist individuals in the communities of Michigan with developmental disabilities. And there was another executive directive that, just to give you another example, this was to expand voting opportunities and update Michigan's list of voter registration agencies. So the governor's office wanted more people to make sure they have access to voting and have knowledge about voting. So what she did was she identified certain agencies in Michigan, like the Department of Health and Human Services, and said, okay, I want you to keep information on your website that helps people with voting. I want you to be able to direct people to a website about voting, help them know what best practices are about voting and things like that. So some of the agencies that she wanted to do this were like the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, like I said, Health and Human Services, and the Housing Development Authority, because these are different agencies that as citizens in Michigan, the citizens in Michigan go to these different agencies all the time and every day to interact with them, to get services with them. And so if they have voting information there, then it's getting voting information and best practices out to more of the population, more of the people of Michigan. And last, an executive directive that she had on August 25th of 2023 was for declaration of a state of emergency, kind of to add more counties she found out more counties were affected by the storm. So as governor, as a state leader, You set the state's agenda, which is basically a list of high priority issues that the state needs to address. And every state is different. And so that's why there's a governor for each state, because one state's, Michigan's high priority issues may be different from California's high priority issues or Florida's high priority issues. The governor makes speeches to explain to citizens and lawmakers why these issues are important. So basically kind of to educate. And the governors attend many events and ceremonies to launch new state programs or just to show support for what people are doing. And I don't know if you guys remember Miss Martinez, how she talked about going to some events that the governor couldn't make it to represent the governor's office. So there's times the governor's only one person, she can't be everywhere. So that's why she has that team in her executive office. And in times of crisis, they reassure citizens that the state government is doing everything possible to help. And those are some of the challenging times that I'm sure occur in the governor's office. Now, there's another office that's in the governor's office, and that's the lieutenant governor office. And right now, our lieutenant governor is Garland Gilchrist II, and he's a Democrat who's been in that position since 2019 as well. He's actually the 64th lieutenant governor of Michigan. He has a background in engineering, and he has there's three duties that he has, and these are the only positions and things that he does, but he co-chairs the Michigan Joint Task Force on Jail and Pretrial Incarceration. He's the chair of the Michigan COVID-19 Task Force on Racial Disparities, and he leads efforts to connect more people in unserved locations in Michigan to affordable high-speed internet. So the lieutenant governor of Michigan, I'll say this is the second ranking official in the U.S. state of Michigan behind the governor. In Michigan, the governor and lieutenant governor are elected as a ticket to serve a term of 4 years. So not everyone has a lieutenant governor. The election takes place 2 years after each presidential election. So the next election will take place November 2026. Historically, the governor and lieutenant governor were elected separately. So imagine this, you could have, and this happens sometimes where you had the Republicans were in one position, say the governor was Republican and the lieutenant governor was Democrat. So it used to be that they could be elected separately like that. But ever since the Michigan Constitution of 1963, that changed that. So like the governor, the lieutenant governor is allowed to serve up to 2 terms in office. So these are 3 main duties that he's assigned to. He serves as acting governor while the governor is out of state. To become governor, if the governor is unable to serve due to death, illness, or incapacitation. And he presides over the Michigan Senate. So these days, too, the lieutenant governor also acts as an assistant to the governor. When the governor is unable to attend a function, the lieutenant governor may be sent in place of the governor. So, there's a lot of places for her to be, and she's got quite a few people that can take the place if she can't be in that location. So now this is the fun part. We're going into our critical thinking activity. Now, this is to really get you all to have a better understanding of the office of the governor and some of her tools. So, congrats. Everyone here has been elected governor. So, you'll be given a governor toolkit, and we'll talk about the items that are in your toolkit. So we'll give you certain situations, and you'll have to choose a tool to address each situation that is provided. So if you select the correct tool, you are to give yourself 1 approval point. So I'll say right now, if you don't have pen or paper or something that you can write or note something down on, I'll give you a moment to get that once I finish the page, or as we're reading the instructions, just get a moment to get that, because you're going to keep score. You're going to keep your own score. So if you select the correct tool, you give yourself 1 approval point. If you select the incorrect tool, give yourself 1 disapproval point. So once we are done with all the situations that are provided, you are going to subtract your disapproval points from your approval points to get your total. And then the player with the highest points wins and is reelected to be governor. Okay? Does anyone have any questions about the activity before I move forward? You can put them in the chat or raise your hand. Okay. Well, next we'll go over what's in your toolkit. So as governor, these are all the different options that you have. So you have 10 tools at your that are ready for your use. So A1 is to propose a new law to the state legislature. And then you all know that if you propose a new law to the state legislature, they have to agree with it in order for it to actually be put into place, for the governor to, for it to be a law for everyone. Your second toolkit is to veto a bill, which means to say, nope, we're going to get rid of that and send it back, or sign a bill so it becomes a law. So you can veto a bill and send it back and say, hey, it needs a little bit more work. I think we need to do this to it, that to it. Or you can say this bill is crazy altogether and we just want to get rid of it. So that's your second option, tool. The third, C, executive order, and we just talked about executive orders, to create a task force to study a problem. So if you don't know yet what you might have a problem that's posed in the state and you don't know yet what to do with it, you don't know if it needs a law or what you should really do, that's when you probably want to do the executive order to create a task force to study a problem. D, an executive order to reduce or eliminate a prison sentence. E is executive order to create an office or council to carry out a task. F, attend a ceremony or event to show your support. G is give a speech. H, executive order to make rules for state employees or government. E, executive order to proclaim a state of emergency. And we talked about the different reasons why you would do that. And J is executive order to call the state legislature into special session. So I will give you all a couple moments to get a pen and paper and to read over in your own time silently those tools. If you have any questions, raise your hand before we get started in posing the situations. I see thumbs up. Kate and Jess was already prepared with the notebook and the paper.
And I'll just add too, the governor's tools are on the following slides too, so you don't need to worry about writing them all down. You'll see them again.
Yes, that would be a lot to write down. Thank you, Kelly. Sienna, I see the thumbs up. Okay, looks like we are ready to get started with our first situation. All right, here we go. Situation number 1. The legislature passed a bill creating a new holiday. What tool would you use as governor? You can put your answers in the chat. And to be quick, you can put the letter. You don't have to write out the whole answer. You can just put A, B, C, D, E, F. What's going to be your answer? Now I'll give you a moment. I see some answers coming in. All right. I don't know if everyone got a chance to answer. The correct answer is B. veto a bill and send it back, or sign a bill so it becomes law. So I would like to hear from someone who picked B, and I would like to hear from someone who picked something other than B, and what was your reason? Why did you think it was that one? So raise your hand. And it's okay, we're all learning. If you didn't get B, that is fine. Even adults, we look at it and say, you know what, that might be a little bit tricky, because I see that most people were in between A and B, and I can see why. So let me hear from someone. Does anyone want to tell me why they picked B and why they picked A? Rain, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I chose A. I chose A because because it said the
Legislature.
the legislature
Big tough one.
passed a bill creating a new state holiday. So then it would be when they said proposed a new law. So they were trying to make a new holiday a law, like the law of a new holiday.
Mm-hmm. I see how you could that one could be, that was tricky there. So it says the legislator passed a, well, I'll let Kara go, and then we'll go more into the answer. Go ahead, Kara. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. It was a bill before, then I picked A.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
And I picked A,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason why I picked A was it was a bill, so the bill needs to get passed to be a law.
Got you. So you picked, okay, I got it. So with this answer, the legislature in this case, in this situation, already had the bill. And I don't know if for you, those of you that have been in some of the things before, we've talked about before how a bill, or if you were in Democracy and Me, some of you went over how a bill becomes a law. But the legislature already passed the bill to create a new state holiday. So at that point, it's then in the governor's hands. So she wouldn't propose a new law, because a new law comes from a bill, and the legislature already had the bill. I know it can be confusing. So since it's coming from the state legislature, she now has it's on the governor to say, no, I don't want this bill. So it would be B, veto a bill and send it back, or sign the bill so it becomes a law. So she said, that new state holiday, I don't like it. It doesn't make any sense. Away with it. Then she'd veto it and send it back. Or she would say, you know what, that's a good idea for a state holiday. I'm going to sign it, so then it becomes a law. So then the bill goes from just a bill to a law. So that was that. But that one was tricky. Okay, we're going to go on. Great job, guys. I'm going to situation number 2. So yeah, if you got that correct, give yourself 1 approval point. And if you missed it a little bit and you didn't get B, 1 disapproval point. All right, we're at situation number 2. You need to know if future growth will add pollution to state waters. We have a lot of waters in Michigan, so this would be a very big deal. Which tool would you use? All right, you got time on the clock. When you think you know your answer, go ahead and pop it in the chat. But we're going to give people a chance to kind of really think about that and give their best answer. What would you do? All right, did everybody get a chance to put their answer in the chat? Okay, let's see what the answer is. C, an executive order to create a task force to study a problem. All right, let me hear from my C folks and my non-C folks. Okay, so who picked? Raise your hand. Let me know why you picked what you picked. And Reagan.
I chose C because it said you need to know if future growth will add pollution to state waters. And C says executive order to create a task force to study a problem. And so I thought that like if you were the governor, you would give like you would use that, and so they could take the task and study the problem. So they would give her the answer.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. Kara. Go ahead. Unmute.
So I picked C because if you need to like figure out like if the future growth will and then to add pollution to state waters, like you need to like study the problem and figure it out before you like spring into action.
Correct. Got it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Very good feedback. So yeah, so as governor, like we saw our governor, she has a law degree and she went to school for law, but you can't study everything. You can't be an expert on everything. So when it comes to certain problems, maybe she's not the expert on pollution in state waters. So that's when the governor goes, this is a problem. I may know some about it. I can study up, I can research on it, but I'll also let me talk to people that are in environmental justice, environmental advocates, those who are doing the work, that work with the waters, that are out there testing the levels of pollution. Why don't I create a task force of those individuals to really tell me and give me all of the data and the evidence that says future growth will cause more pollution or it won't. And that way, if the governor decides to make an executive order or wants to create something that goes into law, she's bringing research and data. She's not just saying, you know what? Nah, I think it will, and just taking and just giving her opinion. So that's what a task force and things like that will assist with. So great job, guys. Now, so again, give yourself one approval point or one disapproval point. And we are going to move on to the next situation. Situation number 3. Thousands are homeless after 5 tornadoes hit overnight. Ooh. You're the governor. What are you going to do? All right, I see some answers in the chat. Rain, make sure you change it to meeting group chat so everyone can see. Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, let's see what the answer is. And the answer is I. So executive order to proclaim a state of emergency. Reagan, go ahead. You can unmute. Yeah.
I chose I because like 5 tornadoes hit overnight, and I is executive order to proclaim a state of emergency, and like thousands of people are homeless. So you need to like proclaim a state of emergency because 5 tornadoes have hit and people are homeless.
Right, right. We need to get the resources out, right? And that executive order does that. Kara.
So I chose I because if a tornado hit, then you feel like of a state of an emergency. And you would, or you could do like G and give a speech about it, but mostly you would say that you mostly would say that it would be an executive order to proclaim a state of emergency.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And thank you for bringing up that point and bringing attention to that, because that could have been an option that someone picked. They could have picked, well, gee, I'm going to give a speech. So if that's an option, that doesn't mean now in this scenario, it's not necessarily it's not the correct answer or the first option that you may necessarily go with, but I bet the governor would have to do both, right? Because if 5 tornadoes have hit overnight and thousands are homeless, there are people her people in the state of Michigan are probably sad, worried about their children, worried about their families, feeling displaced. And they need that encouragement. They need to hear something from the governor that says, hey, let me give this speech and let you know that resources are coming. And so the speech will probably be to say, I signed an executive order proclaiming a state of emergency and resources are getting out to you guys as soon as possible. So yeah, thank you for bringing that point up. So there's multiple tools many times that are used. All right, good job, guys. We're going on to our next situation. So situation number 4, it's time for your yearly state of the state address. Which tool would you use? All right, I see most of you have put G. So let's see. G is the correct answer. Give a speech. So, yep, Reagan, go ahead.
I chose G because if you do this yearly and stuff, you would probably give a speech and say like, I am proud to do this every year and stuff like that. But you could also do F if you wanted.
Attend a ceremony or event to show your support.
Yeah, because like that might be your yearly kind of thing. But
And you're correct.
You would most likely do G, but you might do F.
So that you're correct in picking G, and I see why you would pick F, because it is the governor's thing that they do, the yearly state of the state address. And so that is where they give a speech. And everyone the citizens of the state look to the governor at that time to see, okay, what is she going to say are our priorities? What is she going to say that she's going to address? What is she going to change? All the things that you're worried about as a citizen of the state, you're hoping that she addresses those in the state or gets you excited about some of the changes that are going to happen in the state. So that's good. Does anyone else have any feedback on their answer of G? Go ahead, Kara. Yep.
Chose G because, like, if it's something we couldn't usually say the state address, like, it's a pretty big thing. I'm sure, like for example, like Gretchen Whitmer would take it like really, really like, seriously. So I think she would type out a speech and read it.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
But you could also like do F, have a ceremony.
It's kind of like everything wrapped up in one, but more
Yeah.
than it's G more so because more than F, it is her event. That is her thing. So when in this situation, when they're referring to F, it's like if it's somebody else's ceremony or event, but you guys are correct in that line of thought. It's a big deal. It's a big event, and it's her event where she gives a speech. So you guys are right on target. All right, we'll go into our next situation. Situation number 5, the Child Crimes Task Force says child neglect should be a crime. Which governor's tool would you use? It can be whichever answer you think is the best. I will say that. So this one's got a little hint in it, in that it says the Child Crimes Task Force. So it's already evidently been a task force established to address this. And what they got out of the task force, they said that they think child neglect should be a crime. Okay, so I've got a variety of answers here. See some changing. Okay, I'm going to go on. Did everyone have an opportunity to answer? I'm going to go on to reveal what the answer is. A, propose a new law to the state legislature. So we talked about how the governor earlier in these scenarios wanted to figure out about pollution. So she went ahead and we said that she would create a task force to study the problem. So in this situation, it said the task force we already have the Child Crimes Task Force. So we know then that the answer can't be C because we already have a task force established. And they said child neglect should be a crime. So now when they bring that information back to the governor, it's about what she should do now. So let's hear from Rain on why you picked the answer that you picked. Go ahead, Rain.
I chose B because when it says the Child Crimes Task Force says child neglect should be a crime, then the B says veto a bill or send it back or sign a bill so it becomes a law. It should become a law. It should become a law. And also on A and B is kind of the same, but it's not the same because they're saying propose a new law to the state, but B is saying veto veto a bill, send it back, or get it signed so it can become the law.
Mm-hmm. And I can see how you would go between A and B, because in this scenario, there's not yet a bill. It's just a task force saying, hey, we think this should be a crime. So in order for something to be noted and labeled as a crime, we need a bill that says child neglect is a crime. And we want that to be the new law. Athena said, I also said B is my first answer because it sounds like it is already a law. It sounded like it was a law in process, not creating a new law. I get that. I get that too. Reagan.
So I first went with D because I thought like it was a crime and it said prison, so they kind of related. But then I read A, and then I read them a couple of times too, because I saw a lot of people choosing A, and I kind of skipped over A, and so I was reading it again, and then I put A or D because A is propose a new law to the state legislative because it never said that it was a law yet, and that they're trying to make it a law and to propose it to the legislature.
I could see how it could be challenging. This one was a tricky one, right? But some of the tools, some of the keys were in the wording of the question. So, like it said, or the statement, it said the Child Crimes Task Force says child neglect should be a crime. So that lets us know that it must not be a crime in this scenario. It must not be a crime. So then that needs to be a law that says it's a crime. So this one was a tricky one. But go ahead and assess your points and what you think is appropriate. We're going to go on to the next situation. Give me a second. All right, situation number 6. A well-behaved inmate has served 30 years of a life sentence for a crime she did at age 13. Which governor's tool would you use? I see some fast on the draw people. All right, I'm going to go on to the answer of this one for the sake of time. This one was pretty clear, right? D, executive order to reduce or eliminate a prison sentence. If someone committed a crime at age 13 and they've already spent 30 years, so that means by this time they're 43. That means that, you as governor may say, okay, they've served their debt or they've done their punishment. And so I'm going to let them go. And especially if it was something committed at age 13, which is a teenager. Reagan, you want to weigh in on that? Reagan and then we'll go to Rain. And then we'll go to the next situation. But go ahead, Reagan, and then Rain.
So of course I put D there first because I basically knew that it was D, and then I was trying to look through all of them, and I was wondering if he got and caught for if it was a law, and then I figured out after I put it in the chat that yes, and so I knew that it was D because it says executive order to reduce or eliminate a prison sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a sentence when this person was 13 and now he's 30 years old and it says he's well behaved.
Mm-hmm. And so, yep. So this person, she did it at age 13. She served 30 years. So she's actually 43. So now someone may say, hey, she spent majority of her life in prison. She's been well behaved. Let's go ahead and pardon or reduce the sentence that she has to serve. But nice work. Rain.
I chose D. I chose D because one, it says that she did this crime at 13.
Mhm.
and she served 30 years in jail. And normally, if you did something really, really bad, it would be 30 years. But at the age of 13, I feel like they should have just let her go, or like earlier, because spending almost her whole life in jail is doesn't need to be that long, because just because of what happened at 13.
I would agree with you, Rain. So, yeah, so that is great feedback. Let's go on to our next situation. Situation 7. The state must create a central database for healthcare providers. Which governor's tool would you use? And so this one, you guys are chewing on this one a little bit. It's stumping you a little bit. Create a central database for healthcare providers. So that's create one place that has all of the information about the healthcare providers. So the state must create it. So I'll give some hints on this one. If the state must create it, it seems like this is something they already know they have to do. So it's not something to make a decision on. The state already knows they must do something. All right, I'm gonna go into the answer. All right, this one was E, which is executive order to create an office or council to carry out a task. So when you see keywords, and hold on, Reagan, we're gonna, just so because it's almost time for us to go, so we're gonna hold off on a little bit of questions just so we can get through the rest of these situations, and then we'll get to the end. So I'll hold off a little bit on feedback for this one. But the answer is E, so go ahead and put if you got your approval point or disapproval point. And so the key here was the state must create a central database. So this is something that they already know they have to do. So this is a task that needs to be carried out. So that's why the answer is E. So we'll go on to situation 8. Reading Month kicks off today with a celebration at the library. Which governor's tool would you use? All right, we're gonna go to C because it looks like you guys are mostly, everyone's on the right track. That this is F. Attend a ceremony or event to show your support. Show your support at the library for Reading Month. All right, we only have 2 more situations left. Situation 9, the anti-discrimination rules for state employees need to be updated. So this is something already established, but they need to be updated. Which tool would you use? All right. go to the answer. If you answered H, you are correct. Executive order to make rules for state employees or government. So the answer was in the title of the situation. And the last one, we'll move on. Situation 10. The legislature is gone, but a new tax bill must pass in time for the election. Which tool will you use? Make sure you look at all your options. All right, I will go on to the answer. And the answer for this one was J. So the key in this situation is the state legislature is gone. So we have to give them back. We have to get them back in the session in order to have anything done. So that's when the governor would use an executive order to call the state legislature into special session. So that means we got to get them back in order to see if we can pass this new tax bill. So that's J. So go ahead and you all calculate your points up. So while you're calculating your points, I will go ahead and post the QR codes for the evaluations. And remember, you want to complete the evaluations in order to get your credit for attending tonight's Friday Night Live. I am also going to email that out. So I'm going to send that email out now. So I'm going to send the email out now that also has the links to it so that you have that. So your parents will receive that. And before you leave tonight, I also want to not only just thank you for participating. You guys are always absolutely great and have so much to share, and you're so sharp. So I really appreciate you being here and spending your Friday evening just learning and growing in this direction. I promise you it's going to serve you in the future as you go on to lead in whatever industry it is that you choose. But I want to let you know about a couple of things. So there will not be a June Friday Night Live. I know, but it's unfortunate, but I will say we will have one in July and August, and we already have some fabulous speakers. So in July, we will have Senator Sarah Anthony. And some of you already know her or have heard about her. One piece that we've talked about in our Friday Night Live sessions is the Crown Act that she was a part of passing. So she will be here July 26th to speak with you. And then August 23rd, we will have Samaya Ahmed Sheikh, and she's the head of engagement of appointments in the executive office of Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So she's another person that's in the head of the engagement. So she works in the executive office as well. So these are all types of different positions. You know, I want you all in the GSSEM, we want you all to know all the different things that you can be, all the different positions that are available, because sometimes in government and in leadership, all we know about is the main person, but we don't see all these other people that are supporting them and doing very, very important jobs and work for the citizens of the state of Michigan. So I want you to know all the different options, if possible, that you could be. And this way you can cancel some things out about what you don't want to do. So it's great to learn things that you want to do and things you don't want to do. So when I sent the emails with the surveys in there, I also have registration links if you want to register for the July and August Friday Night Lives. And that is all I have for tonight. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, I do want to add. So I owe some gift cards to the individuals that participated in the third Friday Night Live. I will also have those who participated in the fourth and tonight. So some people will receive multiple gift cards, and some will, it just depends on which ones you participated in. So look out for that. Those will be in the mail. They'll be going out this week coming up. They'll and they're Sam's Club or Walmart gift cards that you can use. Does anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourself if you have anything that you wanted to share. Oh, and the links have been posted in the chat as well. Go ahead, Reagan.
Are we gonna say our points?
Yeah, you know what? Go ahead. Yes. Let me hear your points. Thanks for reminding me, Reagan. Does anyone have 10 points? 7. Yeah, go ahead and put your points in the chat. Who got reelected? Let's see. We've got 7. We've got a bunch of 7s. So far, we've got 7s battling out at the polls. Oh, and Sienna, she's
8.
looks like 8. Do we have anybody that has 9 or 10?
Oh,
Grace
Grace.
is 9. Okay, now Grace looks like she's taking the governor's spot. Does anyone that have 10? Oh, we have not. Rain has 9. Does anyone else have 10? She forgot to count. Okay. It looks like Grace and Rain are going to be battling it out. It's a tiebreaker to figure out who is going to be the governor. And maybe you all can be governor and lieutenant governor, and we'll have a battle out for that. 6 points. Good job. It's tough. It's tough in real life and in the game to be governor, right? Thank you all. You all have a wonderful Friday night. If you don't have any questions or anything, have a good evening and a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
That was sweet.